Grand Finals for today. Vex LeBlanc, who's going to take in Newrof, as we saw him before, versus PotofGreed. And funny enough, we'll let these players play, but somehow in the heat of things, I didn't update their names, so I'll update the names as we go.
Yeah, so we have LeBlanc getting to start us off on the play, deploying Watchful Sentry turn 1, and we have our battlefields, of course, Forbidden Waste and Tipped Peak, Star Tipped Peak, a battlefield most should be familiar with at this point when you hold here Channel of Ruin Exhausted, but a new battlefield from set 3, Forbidden Waste, says, while a unit defends here alone, it has -2. So actually a little bit of an answer, I guess you could say, or a counter to Vex, a deck that obviously wants to hold, but perhaps not one that wants to hold with units alone, so may not get too much value out of it, but nonetheless, hopefully something that will give our LeBlanc player a little bit of an edge in this matchup. But we're going to see a turn to conquer coming out of the Watchful Sentry with an activation of LeBlanc's legend ability to discard a tactical retreat in order to make a second copy of Watchful Sentry.
You know, funny enough, that is a card we didn't get to see too much in these earlier rounds. Tactical Retreat, I believe, works the same way as something like a Flash. When the unit, actually, no, something like a Zonia's, right? Choose a friendly unit. Next time it
Hmm.
would die, so basically a Guardian Angel slash Zonia's Hourglass for the Order domain. But just like that, Mr. Plus, the Karthus is online. This is going to be a whole lot of draw, 2 draws a piece, so 4 cards incoming into the hand of LeBlanc. Is that the proper play, you feel like, Mr. Plus? Are you leaning towards giving him all that draw? Do you feel like you had to do it one way or the other? Might as well deny him a point while you can?
You know, something that could have been cool to see there, maybe ill-advised, but he could have charmed this Karthus up to the Forbidden Waste just to get it to score his opponent a point, obviously, but at least it would be defending alone and be only 1 might for the Nami to be able to take out and stop all this draw, but evidently just wanted to take control of the battlefield and then deploy their chosen champion with Vex instead, which did enable a lot of draw out of our LeBlanc, already getting that draw 4, but having the answer with Call the Weak that was then defied, but another answer right after that with Hidden Blade. Of course, the deflect from that Vex made it so that our LeBlanc went all the way back down to 2 runes, now coming into only 4 runes this turn, while their opponent Vex is now at 8 runes in this turn. So this could be exactly what our Vex player needed to get a foothold and get ahead of this LeBlanc before she starts getting way too ahead with all these copies.
And another card to kind of make full use of that Karthus will be the Black Rose. I'm going to save myself the trouble of that card, but
Dignitary.
Dignitary?
Dignitary, yeah. Black
Dignitary.
Rose
Okay.
Dignitary.
Does make sense. Not only you get the +1 assault before the death, you do get the channel room. Very similar how the sentry triggers, but Karthus has been dealt with, so that problematic card is one step in the right direction for Vex, but now you're trying to push a board state without any units, so you back off simply to draw. So having to do what you have to do to find some more answers in the deck, you use a discipline on your opponent. You don't love to see it. You use a backed off on your opponent. Unless you had the green set 3 Vex, when you stun a unit, you go to the battlefield. But in this situation, not feeling all that good, just simply using it for a +1 draw. Let's see what he has, though, for the remaining 7 energy, because so far this looks to be a good hold and kind of spreading out the distance between these two players. 3 points most likely to just a single point. I think it was correct, expensive but correct, to do everything you can to take down that Vex Apathetic as soon as you could.
Yeah, unfortunate our Vex player got a little bit of a breathing room, like we mentioned, just having a big rune advantage and being able to kind of get ahead maybe in that department by getting a big board established, but looks like kind of drawing very poorly on which is very surprising, having 8 cards at their disposal in hand. Um, Not able to really,
Oh,
wow, just scooped it up, in fact.
Wow, wow, wow. Vex saying I've seen enough. I've played 4 rounds. Let's just go ahead and wrap things up. We're looking for a speedier grand finals. I can respect it. Once you play one too many games, once you understand what this LeBlanc deck can really do, it does feel like you don't have the answer, especially if he only had a single apathetic in the deck. That was the main key piece and main component he had to kind of slow the game down to his liking. And maybe he didn't have another one in the deck, so he says, let's move on to game number 2.
Maybe to your point, like you mentioned, that just the perhaps lack of additional copies of the Vex was a big reason why our LeBlanc player decided to nuke their entire rune base just to get it off the board, betting on that fact and hoping that even if it cost them all their runes and they went down half of the runes of their opponent, they would be able to then mount the comeback without having to deal with that Vex. And that seemed to be the case in game one. Will that be the case in game two? Or will Vex play a little bit more tempered this time and try to make sure that they can, without a shadow of a doubt, protect their apathetic from getting removed thanks to the likes of something like Call the Weak into Hidden Blade, like in game one?
Right. I mean, we're seeing here at the minimum something like a Zonya's Hourglass, but a big, ambitious rebuke, nailing, bringing down your room pool down to just 2, just to get rid of the LeBlanc champion. Sometimes you just want to guarantee the hold as quick as you can, and that does manage to get you 1 for the conquer, 2 for the hold most likely. And I think now is the time to go ahead and play out your apathetic. But it's a little tricky because how Zonia Hourglass work, if you want to go ahead and use that overzealous fan ability, it goes, but then you lose your Hourglass, which you rather save for the Vex, of course. So I don't know if I love that rebuke, but I don't know exactly what he had in hand, because I feel like you just let your fan go. Or honestly, I don't know how I love that Zonia's Hourglass. I feel like Vex might have been better, and then have some runes open for the turn. But I think he was scared of something like what we saw in game number 1, a Hidden Blade slash a Call the Weak. So I could respect that play as well, but we don't know exactly what's in the hand, so he knows, and now is the time to go ahead and play out the Vex, it seems like.
It seems that you're correct, though. I mean, all things considered, it feels a little bit strange, the sequencing that our Vex player went for here. Zanya's, of course, kind of being a negative synergy with the overzealous fan. Would have rather probably seen the Vex deployed in the previous turn when you had the Targon's Conquer effect active, giving you the 2 runes on defense. He still would have been able to utilize the rebuke there. And then if he really wanted the Zanyas for some extra insurance, could have hit it at the Targon's Peak and then been able to utilize Overzealous Fan and
Right.
then react with the Zanyas once it was absolutely necessary to protect the Vex. But now being put in this awkward predicament where, like you said, if he wants to utilize the Overzealous Fan, it's going to destroy or interact with the Zanyas in a basically a negative synergy way.
Wait, what do we have the rewind there? I'm a bit confused because originally he used the overzealous. I would imagine he said, okay, never mind. I'm not going to use the overzealous fan. I'm going to let the Vex go. So now the Zonya's triggered on it, but the mirror image coming down, copying the Vex in a ready position, pushing the overzealous fan. And I would imagine the ability doesn't trigger, so he doesn't have to pay for deflect, but he does pay for deflect. He just wants to deny as much points as possible, but to make matters
Oh.
worse, that is the Call of the Week. Everything getting removed on this board, but that is a huge blow to the likes of this Vex legend, because one more time, you lost your chosen champion, and he is so all important to your game plan. But here's a champ we haven't seen all tournament long, but not too long.
Oh my
Man,
gosh.
how many removal does LeBlanc have?
Cue the Simpsons meme. Stop, he's already dead. He just
Mm-hmm.
keeps calling the weak our poor Vex player. Purple Vex answered by Call the Weak. The very next turn, Windmill slams out another one to answer the green Vex. Our poor Vex player is getting bullied by LeBlanc right now. And looking at 8 runes to 6, basically even on the rune front, essentially. 2 runes, or 2 Honest Brokers out for a LeBlanc player, and it's only 2-0. Not even a big lead or anything generated for Vex. It's looking pretty grim, but hopefully this isn't an instant scoop like the last game. That our Vex player will have a little bit more resolve and try to bounce back from what was a very, very rough start of this game number 2, as we see the first Conquer come out onto Targon's Pink and a discarded Soaring Scout offering us a Honest Broker clone, and then the other Honest Broker coming out to conquer our Dusk Rose Lab as a Ruined Rex is deployed to the base. And now tapped out, we pass it over to Vex, who is once again having to discipline an enemy unit. Not what you want to be doing. It's looking pretty scary here for Vex fans.
It really is. This is another kind of a desperation type play whenever you have to go ahead and pretty much throw away really great cards like a discipline, like the back off we saw before. It just signals to me that you don't have any good units. In this case, it looks like you don't have any units to go ahead and develop out on your board state. This game might be as quick as the last one. That's a double hold going up to 4 points. The Ruin Rex in the back line doesn't really make a difference. If he goes ahead and establishes out a Karthus this turn, I don't think there's any world where Vex can get back in this game. He tried his very best, but it does come back to the play, as you pointed out nice and early. I think if Zhonya's Hourglass was hidden, that could have made a bit of a difference. But honestly, who are we kidding? There was one too much removal, I believe, in LeBlanc's hand. A double call a week. I don't know if he could have beaten that, even if it was hidden.
Maybe not, but I think he could have given himself more of a fighting chance than the line he did take. Unfortunately, here we're looking at all 12 runes at their disposal and somehow nothing to do with them. I'm really at a loss for what this Vex deck is looking like. I'm going to have to take a look at the list after this to see how this was built, but it seems like it's nothing but spells and defense for our Vex potentially. And when those Vex get answered that early on, thanks to those Call the Weeks, I don't think there seems to be much of a backup plan here.
Right, because honestly, Vex on paper has some clean answers for what LeBlanc was dishing out, right? You have the Defies for the Call of the Weeks. You have the Charm to bring over the Karthus into your battlefield to try to take care of him before he gets a little bit out of control, but just not really able to put the pieces together or being fortunate enough to draw those puzzle pieces from the deck of cores. And it's hard to say that when you're looking at a hand of 9. I almost, funny enough, want to take a little bit of a sneak peek. If he doesn't play any units, Mr. Plus, we have to take a look at the hand. What does he have? Just all spells? I would imagine there's at least one unit, whether it be a big unit like Valmont. Just put something on the board and hope there's not the third call of the week. Because right now, you are losing this game in 2 turns, going from 4 to 6, 6 to 8 if you don't do anything from this position.
Yeah, we're just in this awkward position now where even if he's able to put out a unit, it can just be removed by the third copy of Cold a Week potentially. Maybe that's what he's afraid of. I'm just traumatized from the Cold a Weeks. I'm not sure, but gonna have to put out something. Looks like we're seeing 8 mana tapped. Gonna be a Viamod that, of course, cannot be played there as he thinks that it can. That is a Rengar specific or Deadbloom
Yeah,
if
he thought it
you're
was a
still so inclined.
Deblum there, but it can be
But
played to the base. And interesting. Okay. So confusing ambush with what you said, a Deadbloom Predator. So if that worked the way, Valmont would be insane. It's already a great card, but it would be even more of a disgustingly good card. Just plays it on the base, and as we said before, hoping there's not the third call of the week in the hand for LeBlanc. He played 2 already, so not the most likely to see the third. But you never know. LeBlanc has been running hot all tournament long. Sometimes when you have the gas going, it just keeps going and going. And interesting enough, unleash or unchecked power, I feel like that's a good sideboard tech for a Vex deck.
yeah, it's a good way to break that hold should the Vex be able to establish a nice hold going. But the third copy of Call the Week was there. Thankfully, this time finally answered by a Defy. So Viamot is going to get to stick around, but Viamot by his lonesome is not enough to get over this entire battlefield. Unfortunately, he can go in and stop them from dealing combat damage, but he doesn't have enough might to actually kill both of them. So gonna need some pump spells if he wants to answer the Dusk Rose Lab. LeBlanc on the other side of the field over at Targon's Peak is going to retreat their Honest Broker back to base and then just pass with 7 runes up, feeling pretty comfortable in their position, being 6-2, 7 runes up with double Riptide Rex plus a hidden at Duskrow's Lab. They're just in a spot where they're asking their opponent, "Do you have it?"
Yeah, which is always a tough spot to be in. And you know, that hidden card, most likely something like a face breaker, most likely something like a hidden blade, as we saw before. So doesn't want to risk it. Goes for the Targon Peak at 3, but you are severely behind on points right now, just about halfway of the total points of your opponent. So 3-6, but oh, you won't even get there. A hidden blade coming out, unless in the hand at 8 there is another defy, at least a not so fast. So hidden bleed, and he's thinking about it. Does tap 1, recycle 1, so that is a not so fast coming down to protect the Valmon's lair. I will say there's a little bit of a saving grace in the simple fact that LeBlanc only has 3 cards in hand. This is the lowest hand size we've ever seen from LeBlanc, and to make it sweeter for Vex, that's a charm coming down. But does, oh, they don't do combat damage, so 4 damage isn't enough to take down the Valmon.
Oh, but the Death Grip coming out as a response. Very cool. Death Grip gonna take the 6 might. Oh, just kidding. Another copy of Defy is out. Oh, man. Finally, it's lining up for our Vex player, having the Defies, the not so fast, the charms, everything that they needed to finally get through all of these non-stop answers from LeBlanc. But a second copy of Death Grip comes out. And is it going to be answered by a third copy of Defy? Looks like not this time. Death Grip is going to get to resolve, which of course is going to give 6 might from this other temporary Ruined Rex over to our real Ruined Rex, bringing it up to 12, making it more than enough to deal with this Vioma, as well as triggering that Death Rattle, or Death Knell, I should say, on the Ruined Rex to deal 4 over to Vioma. This time, the Vex players deciding not to let this Vioma die, wants to keep it alive, and is going to just Starcross to bounce it back to hand and get rid of this Ruined Rex. But sacrifice now. It is just reaction after reaction. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, right? Just for a draw too, but he didn't have to do this, guys. Starcross bounces your unit and your opponent unit, so the only legal target will be Valmons. They both return the units, and then you hold to 7, and then you treasure broker to 8. What am I missing here? Is Newrof just BMing low-key?
Oh, interesting.
Because Starcross, you couldn't hold.
What he did here was actually respond at reaction speed to the Starcross with his sacrifice that would then kill the Riptide Rex, triggering the deal 4 to Vioma, and then once the Starcross went to resolve, there were no targets, or the original target wasn't there, so it fizzled, and the Vioma stayed at the battlefield. And then once the other Riptide Rex, or sorry, Riptide Rex, the other Ruin Rex died, it dealt the last -4 it needed to kill the Vioma. That was an interesting exchange. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure that everything was exactly above
Right.
board and how it's supposed to go in the rules. We're a little bit new. This is our first set 3 event, so probably need a little bit more clarification from a seasoned judge on whether or not all of that transpired as it was supposed to. But nonetheless, a crazy back and forth with all these reactions being played. And in the end, it seems that if everything was done correctly, that was a very smart play by our LeBlanc to get around the Starcross and manage to take out that Vioma.
Incredible stuff, right? We see exactly, because we were just saying LeBlanc feeling rather low on hand size, but just in the blink of an eye, reaction after reaction, just somehow finding, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in hand on their turn, but just playing out the hand, and that was lurking in the hand event. a hand of Vex, absolutely no kind of gas whatsoever, and a too old-fashioned LeBlanc at the hand of Newrof. He has been cooking
Uh,
in this early set 3 meta because this has been one of the most impressive Riftbound decks I feel like we've ever witnessed in our events.
yeah, so no need to fizzle anything. I got a little overzealous with that whole party. He just uh chat corrected me. He was just able to react with both of his sacrifice and his hidden blade over at the other, and they both resolved before Starcross even got a chance to. So the double death nail deal 4 was enough to take out the Viamat and seal the deal for a LeBlanc player. A decisive victory. What was just almost immediate scoop in game one. Then came down to a pretty back and forth, cool little exchange there at the end of game two. But at the end of the day, LeBlanc showing a dominating position and definitely proving that it is a deck to be out or looked out for going into set three.